Happy Saturday, everyone. This is Erica, the Black Nationalist, coming back at you with another commentary. What I want to discuss today, it's related to everything that we are seeing on social media about how white women and their behavior, of how they're being vindictive, and also how they basically don't, you might want to say they don't have a care in the world of other people's feelings, thoughts, or concerns. And they are very great at weaponizing their tears in order for people to feel very sorry for them. Now, I am a person that just love history, and I truly believe that our people, they are not aware as to the role that white woman has played in bringing about problems and sorrows. But you also have to think about why is it that white women are so steadfast as being on code with their men? No matter how many times they fight and go against their men, they are going to make sure that they protect them for whatever crime that comes across them. And this is a problem that, especially us in the Black community, white women taught our women during the birth of the second wave of feminism to dismiss their men, letting them know that, hey, you don't need them. Be like us. Come and join us, and you can be free. But on the same breath, white women, they knew the importance of staying with their men because it equates power. It gives them power as well to be over us. So what I want to do just briefly, I hope what I'm doing, it will help out, that it will be very cohesive and you can understand the timeline before I go any further into my thoughts and basically tie into today's situation, especially with the incident that took place with Kobe Bryant and his daughter and the other seven members who lost their lives. So, so starting off with one, this is basically from a website. I am going to leave a link as well. But what caught my eye was how the Germanic women at that time when they was fighting against the Romans. Now the Romans, they have a very very rich history, and which I am fond of, because what you see today is exactly how the Roman Empire has fallen or has failed. But anyway, I want to focus on their women. I remember one episode, for some reason YouTube has banned it. It was the rise and fall of Rome. And there was one particular story. I can't think of the general's name, but they walked through this particular forest, and the legion and the Roman legion, and that I believe consists of 10,000 soldiers or more. However, they was walking through this forest. The general was told not to do so. However, he was headstrong on doing it. The Germanic tribe, they caught them by surprise. And from what I remember from that documentary, one of the historians, he said what really took the soldiers, basically threw them off their game, as to how they saw the women was fighting alongside with their men all the way down to the death. And they also had their children with them as well. So from this website, when it speaks about the women, it's, it reads, if a tribe was caught up in a fight while migrating or moving from for any reason, women would not be left behind. The Germanic women would yell at their fighting men, sometimes with their children on hand to witness the fighting, just like what I just mentioned. The women encouraged their children to yell and with bare breasts shouted reminders at the men that they must be victorious in combat or their families would be captured and enslaved, or worse, slaughtered wholesale. Their shouts encouraged their men to fight harder, as women were considered holy spirits. Letting them fall into enemy hands was the ultimate failure. So with this mindset back in the beginning of, I want to say, CE, but whatever the case, the women, the white women at that time, they knew the importance of fighting alongside with their men because it was life or death for them. So instead of, because the Germanic tribe, they also had issues amongst themselves, and of course they was fighting amongst themselves over territory, who's woman that they want to get, they did the raping and all that other type stuff. But when it came to them wanted to get new land or wanted to expand, because the family they was expanding, when they got into war, the women, they didn't want to stay home. They wanted to make sure that they was right there alongside with their men. So that mentality has been embedded in them over centuries and centuries. So we should not be surprised as to why white women, they are going to continue to remain on code when it comes to their men, when they want to fight or when they want to conquer another land. You see, they are going to be, basically they are the driving force of their men. If a white woman says that she wants to go to war, her man is going to go to war for her. That is what's going to happen. They're going to make sure that it's going to continue to stay that way. Now, I do want to speak again, like I said, about the history of white women. And of course, you have your Germans, you have your French, you have your Romans, and so forth, so forth. But with me, I look at the complexion. So going back to what I was mentioning about the history, her name is Agrippina the Younger. Now, with her, she married her uncle, the Emperor Claudius, and brought to the imperial palace her son, the future Emperor Nero. And if anyone knows about Nero, he was terrible. He was the one that was playing, I forgot what was the instrument name, but he was the one that was playing music while he was watching Rome burn. Now, with her, Agrippina the Younger, she Claudius, I'm sorry, he had his own son, Britannicus, who was obviously the heir to the throne. Nero, who was older than the emperor's son, had something that his stepbrother lacked, and that was Agrippina's support. Now, this mother, no matter what, she did back her son until Nero turned on her. She did back her son to make sure that her son got control. Now, on Claudius the emperor, his death, in which Agrippina was thought to have had a hand, Nero was placed on a throne and Britannicus sidelined his own suspicious death. Nero relied on his powerful mother for the first few years of his reign until he began to chafe under her guidance. So here comes the mom. She made sure that her son, no matter what, got the throne, even though it was not rightfully his. And karma has it, I do believe that he had his mother exiled or something like that and then killed. But it goes in harmony with what I have always been saying, how white women, how they teaches, they breed this violence to their children. And I do remember saying this a lot of times on my social media, because people don't understand is how white women's thinking. Again, they think about power and they want to sustain that power no matter what the cost. Even at this time, when Emperor Claudius, he had a son that was rightful to the heir, this woman, she made sure that the boy died, basically. So I'm going to talk about another one. Her name is Julia Domina, and she was the wife of Emperor Severus, who was the last man standing after the years of the five emperors in 193 CE. She followed her husband on his many campaigns to secure his empire. Now, going back to what I mentioned about the Germanic women and how they was out there fighting with their men, you have this woman who was a Roman. She made sure that she was right there with her husband to ensure that he secured the empire. You want to fast forward to World War, well, basically, you don't even have to fast forward to World War One. You could just say at that time, after the fall of Rome, you had women, the white women, they were still right there with their men, conquering territory that was free, so to speak. And also, they held to part of the slavery as well. That is going to come a little later on because I do not want to jump ahead, and I also want to make sure that I bring out a deeper understanding from my point of view about their evil, sadistic ways. Now, there's this young woman. Her name was the Blood Countess Elizabeth Bathory, and she was a Hungarian noblewoman from August 1560 to 21 August of 1614. Now, she was known as being a serial killer, and the reason why she got her name Blood Countess is because she would go out and have people to look for servant girls from the ages of 10 to 14 to come work for her to help, be maids, to be servants and things like that. And she also paid them well. However, she didn't like the fact that she was getting older. So what she did, she would kill these girls and she would bathe in their blood. There was also, which history says that she would burn them, she would mutilate their hands, she would bite the flesh off their faces, she would freeze them or starve them to death. And she also did suspected cannibalism. We all know from the Hidden Colors 5 and when Tyreek goes into depth about cannibalism and how they like to feed upon people. Now, even though she fed upon her fellow white women, it's just a simple fact that they enjoyed, even back at this time, of eating humans. For some reason, I don't understand what can drive a human being to want to eat another human being unless they are on the brink of facing starvation. But when you know that you are not in a situation like that and you still want to eat a person, that just lets me know as to how demonic you are. And that is what the Blood Constance was. She was very demonic. She is well documented. And I do not believe that she served any time. I think she was exiled. I didn't do too much thorough into it because the purpose of this commentary is to show as a history of how white women are, how they feel the need to make sure that they are warriors because they want to sustain their power of white supremacy. And how that they are not going to let that go, and also to pinpoint as to how they go about getting that power. May it be killing off their husbands, son, no matter what the case may be, they are going to be right there to make sure that their men are successful and that they are going to continue to be successful themselves. Now, we all, at least we should know about this young lady in Louisiana, Marie McCarthy, from March 19th through March 19, 1787 through December the 12th, 1849. Now with her, Now with her, she is the one because there are accounts that says that they have found one woman, a black slave whose skin had been peeled off in spirals to make her look like a caterpillar. Another with her bones broken and recessed so that she looked like a crab, and one more whose intestines has been torn out and knotted around the waist. It is also said that she will have heaps of corpse organs and limbs. The slaves were pinned to tables or cramped in small cages. She would have the live bodies with their eyes gouged out, their fingernails torn off, their ears hanging from the shred. And she would also put animal feces in their mouths and sewn it shut. That's how evil she was. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a show, American Horror Stories, and they did a portray of her. They did a portrayal of her, I'm sorry. And this is what's going to bleed into the slavery. There's a book that is called They Were Her Property. Going back to Marie as to what she did to slaves, she took pleasure in doing that. You have to really be sick. You really have to be evil in order for you to just look at another human being and conjure up ways on how I can torture them. You really have to be demonic, someone from the gates of hell. I truly believe that even Satan himself wouldn't even want to be around them because of how twisted they are. And to know that it was mentioned that there was some claims that it was up to 100 people, but history shows it. They enjoy doing this. Why? Again, it gives them power. They want to make sure that they are just as rough and that they are just as iron fist as their men. And you know what? They are. They really are. Because why? Who is it that teach their men to be just as violent and cold-hearted? It's the mother. Every first child teacher is who? The mother. So when it comes to racism and white supremacy, the mother is going to teach her children that. And of course, her husband, who was trained by his mother at birth to support this racism and white supremacy. So going back to this book, They Were Her Property, there was right here, Jones Rogers, I'm taking a little snippet from it, uses old court records and preserved wills of slave owners to prove that there were legal systems in place so white women could maintain ownership of enslaved Africans without disruption. One quote, one way former slave owning women held on to their former slaves was to keep them uninformed about their free status. This proved to be an easier task in some parts of the South than others. Also during the war, again, white women went as far as stomping in Union soldier territory to retrieve these slaves that had been removed from their possession. These bold actions prove exactly how invested in slave ownership these women actually were. Again, white woman has a history of going into war with their men in order to gain power and to keep that power. They right here they went so far as to not to let the the slaves who were free to let them know that hey, you are free. They wanted them to continue to remain under subjection. And they went so far as to they killed one of their own. They killed one of their own in order to retrieve the slaves that they had that was removed from them. That's bold. Now this here is talking about what the white woman did to black women. And as we saw, bringing up to modern times, the situation with Kobe Bryant, when white women out the gate, they came out saying that Kobe Bryant was a rapist when the courts proven that he was not. And it was a shame to see how there were black women. Some were foundational, but there was the vast majority that were not foundational. Now I'm going to read this and hopefully there's some black women that can, once I get finished reading this, I hope that it will put into perspective as to how you should understand the mindset of a white woman and how they think lesser of you. This bullet point from the same book said black women's bodies being used and discarded to breastfeed for the white woman wasn't just a thing, it was big business. They snatched the slave, the black woman's child, and forced her to take care of their child. And they also would beat on the black woman as well. Now, here is a quote. Unlike other barter exchange, these white women did not produce enslaved wet nurses through their own labor, but they did claim ownership of their bodies and the products of wet nurses' labor, their breast milk. To stop right there, I'm sure everyone has seen a picture of a black woman that she would have her breasts out and and there's a white little infant that's sucking on her breast. White women, they view black women's bodies as their property just as their white men just view black men and black women bodies as their property. Now this right here, it says that they claim ownership. So that means that no matter what you did, black woman, during slavery, what black women did during slavery, they was the one that told her what to do, where to sleep, what to eat, how to behave, and when to speak. Complete ownership. And yet you have the mindset of black women today thinking that white women are your allies. But this is the mindset that they had during slavery in the 1800s, 1700s. We just read about Marie as to how she tortured the slaves in Louisiana. And then they even did this in the 1900s. And they're still doing it. They may not be torturing you physically, but they are doing so mentally and psychologically. That's what they're doing. Now, to continue on with this quote, it said that the narratives of enslaved people and slave-owning women's personal letters and diaries attest to the existence of this informal market, and this informality has generally obscured it from historian views. It went on to say many of these black mothers had lost their newborn or needed desperately to be with them, to care for them. But under the control of white slave owning women, their bodies had one purpose, and that was to serve them. That is how white women view you. And you know what? It hasn't changed. White women still view you as being their property. You want to know why and how? Whenever a white woman wants to push an agenda like the feminism, who do they use to sick on people? Black women. Black women, they're the attack dogs for white women. White women, they out here, they're not saying a peep about their white men who's raping women and children, even men, because I was speaking about in my other video about how they're raping men and boys as well. White women, they're not saying anything about that, but white women, they're over here having you black women to pinpoint on black men with alleged sexual crimes. They're over here trying to tell you as to who you should be going after in our community. So, and you still, with this mindset that they have beaten into our women feel the need to quickly go to the white woman's rescue because they feel that, you know what, even though we was under this condition, I still had a place to lay my head, which is in the house. That's where you get Malcolm X when he talked about the house Negro versus the field Negro speech. There's another point from the same book. Women tortured slaves like white men, broke up families like white men, and defied the Emancipation Proclamation just like white men. They was no different. Again, they were no different because they breeded them to be this way. Because by them breeding their men to be this way, it means protecting their power. Now, it may mention in this book Henrietta King is one that won't be forgotten. King was only 8 or 9 when she had been accused by her mistress of stealing a piece of candy. King's mistress decided that an adequate form of punishment would be to get her young white daughter to beat King with a switch for nearly an hour, while the mother placed King's head behind a rocking chair, proceeded to rock back and forth until a young, brutalized King was near a coma. The result left the young enslaved girl severely mutilated, forced to ingest only liquid food through a straw because she lost her ability to chew. Now, see, white women, they got their children, in this particular case, her daughter, involved in beating this young black girl. This is why I hate it when I see our young black children always have to be cuddled up with these little white children today. I'm like, do you not realize as to what white women did to our children? Do you not realize how white women will use their own children to help, to hurt, and to torture our people? They haven't changed their mindset, is basically what I'm trying to get at. White supremacy is still alive and well. It is always going to be intact. Why? Because white women are going to work in line with their men. Like it just said, the women, they tortured, broken up families, and defied them just like their men. It was no difference at all. It's just that they're a female. And normally the times when people have a concept that women are very fragile, that we are nurturers, which is true, but it's hard to fathom that a woman can be evil, can be a serial killer, can be someone that could bring harm to somebody. This is what white women did to us. But in particular, she took her anger and her hatred out on black women. See, the white man, he always had an interest in black women because of the features. They're shapely. They have something that their woman that they don't have, and they looked at them as being exotic. And we all know that when he would rape her, he would bring her and his bastard child inside the house. And we all know that the wife will be upset when she constantly hears her husband goes down in the basement or up in the attic to rape her, because he likes her more so, to the point that that enslaved black woman, she gotten so used to it. And then she got a misguidance that, you know what, maybe he loves me. This is where all that bedwenching comes in as well. So the wife, the white woman, she would constantly beat that woman, that enslaved black woman. She would constantly beat her, take her anger out on her, would have her children to chase around, would chase her child that was conceived out of rape. During the Roman Empire, the women, they took great part in making sure that their sons got the throne, no matter how they got it. The Grecian women, they made sure that they was out there fighting with their men, giving them the guidance that they need. Some of them did pick up swords. All the way down to right now, during the Civil War, that those white women, they was out there as well, making sure that their men retained power, especially over black bodies, our ancestors. Now, I want to go to another, it's the final bullet point from the same book, They Was Her Property. It's number 5. It says, slave owning women harbor resentment and disgust at having to treat black people as human beings. Catherine Ann Edmiston, a white woman who proudly stood with Confederate soldiers, said after the proclamations, "Who considers it binding? No one. Not one person whom I have heard speak of it but laughs at and repudiates every obligation it imposes. It binds one no more than a promise at the pistol point to a highwayman." Slavery may have been over, but white slave owning women like Catherine had no intention of respecting black bodies as anything other than property to be owned. Many of the white women would share this contempt for a litany of reasons, many of them financial. Some of white women who inherited enslaved Africans at birth, making them wealthy before reaching adulthood. And with the end of slavery, this turned their prosperity into poverty, and for that they blame black people. Going back to black women, I want you to think about this. White women constantly screaming in martyr times as to how they're not being paid. Black women, you're still at the bottom. Why is it that our net worth is zero, and then you have Hispanic woman, and then you have Indian woman, and then you have Asian woman, and then white woman at the top still making the money? Even though in the same breath they over here talking about how men makes more money than them. Black woman, do you really think that white woman wants to include you in that? Why do you think they make sure to give you token jobs just so that you can get away, and just for you to go away from them, and for them to tell you what you should and should not do, just as we just read a few moments ago, and how they had complete ownership over the black woman's bodies. This mindset hasn't changed. And you want also another reason? Abortion. Margaret, when she created Planned Parenthood, her whole purpose was to eliminate the black race. Who are the ones that is committing genocide in their wombs? It's our women. I did do a video and I went into details of showing about the different numbers about how many of our black children have been aborted. White women, so you mean to tell me that you want to continue to allow white women to have control over your bodies, even though that they are not doing so physically? That's why I said they are doing this mentally and psychologically. You have not left that. You have not broken free of that slavery mentally, because you still want to be in the good graces of white women. You still want to be in the good graces with them. And for the life of me, I don't understand. But you know what? No, I do understand. It's just that you are afraid of coming out and being your own leader, of being your own woman. Because, see, before the start of the second wave of feminism, white women at the time, and I'm sure people, I don't know if people know this, but white women, they could not get a credit card without having to bring their men to co-sign for the credit card whenever they go to a bank or anything like that. The word housewife and all that stuff, that derives from the white family. All these old black and white shows, you see the wife, she's all dressed in a nice dress with the apron, her waist is very slim. That was the perception of what a housewife was supposed to look. However, in the black community, black women, they still looked good, still did what they wanted to do, and they were not as restricted as the white woman. Because guess what? Black women, they couldn't even get a credit card, period. Why? Because you're black. Because you're black. So white women, they saw how our woman during that time still has some freedom. The men did not control them as bad as the white man did. Because see, the white men, they know they need their women as well to keep the population going of their people. So you have this informant, Gloria Steinem, who went in there and she helped disrupt the family unit. She helped disrupt that. Now it's so badly broken. You have so many of our sisters that are against our black men. It's pathetic. Not realizing that if you have the black men in the household, they will help boost up the network. Now I'm going to talk about as far as with white women and how they protect their men, as far as with them being sexual deviants. You remember that Kavanaugh thing, that incident, that young lady, her name was Miss Ford, how she said that he did some inappropriate things to her in college. Well, I remember clearly as day, at least I hope people remember as well, on CNN, that they had at least five women, and one of them, she looked like she was Hispanic to me. But anyway, one of the women said, who's a Republican, what boy hasn't done this in school? Meaning, what boy, and the other one, she did say, what boy hasn't groped a woman or a girl? I'm sorry. They didn't mind the fact that Kavanaugh did this to this lady in college, or it was in high school. No, it was in high school. I do apologize. Let me correct that. They did not mind that Kavanaugh had groped this girl in high school, but yet they have the audacity to sit up and to slam Bill Cosby by trying to say that he tried to force them and to do lewd acts. You know, he drugged them with Benadryl. I take Benadryl every night. I do not fall out and unconscious or anything like that. So for anyone to have believed that, you had to be stuck on stupid. White women protecting their men who are sexual deviants have the audacity to tell black women, you should be mad at Bill Cosby. You should be mad at R. Kelly. Even though, as I have shown in my previous video as to how it was black men that pioneered going after R. Kelly for him sexually assaulting this young girl, even though she said that that wasn't her on the videotape. And it also showed how our black woman at that time, they was also going off on those men. But then you have who else? Who's the other individual? Michael Jackson, of course. The FBI has been on Michael Jackson looking over here for over a decade, I believe, and they could not find anything. But yet, white women basically interjected, and they sent out their tokens, they sent out their tools to come out and to say, yes, let's go after Michael Jackson, even though this man has been dead for 10 years. Let's go after him still. So that's why I say that our women do not know the think pattern, the pattern of how white women think. White women always viewed you and black men as being their property, but in particular black women, they viewed us as being their property. White women, their main goal, again, I cannot stress this enough, is to have supreme power, to be in a position of authority. We see right now that there is a struggle between white men and white women. At the end of the day, they want to protect white supremacy. So white women is saying, hey, we should now be in control because white men, you guys did mess up a little bit, even though we was the one that encouraged you to go out here and to fight for us. See how twisted their mindset is? But you cannot be mad at them because they have gotten away with this for over thousands of years. They have gotten away with this because they knew that they can, as I made mention on the outset, as to how they weaponize their tears. You have white women today that are raping their male students. They raping their male students left and right. The media want to say sex, but it's rape. The vast majority of them, they're not facing prison time. But yet we have this black teacher, Christine Denard, the judge sent out a second arrest warrant for her. So they putting her in jail. Whereas you have these white women, as you can see right here, these white women over here, they're not facing jail time. Heck, you got a white woman in this particular picture, not even going to mention her name, but she killed her daughter and got off. White women, and I'm just going to say it, they're not meant to be trusted completely. They teach white supremacy because they want to remain in control. White women, don't forget that white women were the ones that were called the slave catchers when they saw a slave trying to escape for freedom. And we know that the slave catchers today, they are known as police officers. So you should not be surprised. And I got so sick and tired of seeing black people like, oh my goodness, why is it that all these white women's always calling the cops? Because that's what they've been doing since slavery. They owned us. And they took pride and joy in torturing us and killing us. And they knew that by slaves, no, by them no longer being slaves, they was like, wait a minute, that's my money. My money is about to dry up. So we are going to continue to fight and do what we can to keep our banks fat, their bank accounts fat. So stop acting surprised when you hear of a white woman calling a cop. That's what they did. They viewed us just like their white men, 3/5 of a human being. That hasn't changed. And I'm so sick and tired also of seeing how and I'm going to switch genders here of how our black men, they want to look and worship the white woman as God. But see, there's this picture right here that I do want to show, as they have the white woman looking like she's a damsel in distress, while you have this black man with the whip, and he's looking like he's about to do something, about to rape her. I'm sorry. He's looking like he's about to rape her and cause harm, when we know that that was not always the case. Black men, they were so that all they wanted to do was to gain freedom for them and their families. That's it. White women, they will go out to the slave quarters and they will grab that buck and they will tell him to lie down with me, and if you don't lie down with me, I am going to say you raped me. That's what they did, and that's what they're doing today. Why else do you think that they were so quick to say after Kobe Bryant died, don't forget he was a rapist? Why? Because one of those, that girl from Colorado, she was white. Even though she wanted to have sex with multiple black men, and when she saw Kobe Bryant, she was like, oh, I have to get him. I have to. And when things did not go her way, she cried rape. This is what white women have been doing for centuries. And for the life of me, I cannot understand as to why our men, you want to be so quick to lay up with them. You don't see any other group of people that went through hell like the Jews. You don't see any Jewish people trying to break their neck to have sex with a German woman or a German man. You don't see the Armenians over here trying to break their necks to have sex or a relationship with the Turkish after what they did to their people, or the Japanese with the Chinese. But we're the only ones that's over here trying to break our necks to lay up with these people. We have to find a way to break this enslaved mentality that we have. Our survival depends upon this, black people. My fellow foundational black Americans, our survival depends upon this. And I really do hope that we can, as a group, I'm talking about over 50%, 60%, 70%. I would be happy if 80% of us were to stop and say, wait a minute, what is it that we're doing here? We need to fix this. I really hope that that will happen. But that is it for this particular video, because I wanted to bring out especially to the thought process of white women, because I am going to follow up with another video, and it is going to talk about bed wenches. I'm going to be talking about bed wenches, and I'm also going to be talking about bed bugs. We see how white women are. We just went over a brief history of white women and their behavior. And then I just want to go over in my next video as to how, again, that we feel that we just need to be in their presence in order for us to feel good. So I do hope everyone enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you later.